The air crackled with their laughter as 5 bikers cornered the lone barista. They expected tears. They got a combat-ready stance. In that instant, they knew they'd targeted the wrong woman. But it was already too late. The Sentinel Brew sat 3 blocks from the solemn gates of Arlington National Cemetery, a quiet outpost where the scent of dark roast mingled with the morning mist. Every day at precisely 5:47, Eliza Vance unlocked the heavy oak door. Her movements were a study in methodical grace, a ritual that bordered on obsession. She measured coffee beans to the gram, 23, never 22, never 24, as if calibrating a precision instrument. Customers saw a dedicated barista. They didn't see the tactical mind that dictated her every action. Her auburn hair was always pulled back in a tight, severe bun, not a single strand escaping. Her uniform was a charcoal gray hoodie and faded jeans, a deliberate camouflage designed to make her forgettable. She never stood with her back to the door. Her preferred station behind the counter gave her a clear line of sight to both the entrance and the emergency exit. She counted patrons the way a sentry counts threats. The regulars, cocooned in their morning routines, had crafted their own narrative for her. Poor thing, they'd murmur over their lattes. Probably medical discharge. Look how she flinches when a truck backfires. They saw the long sleeves she wore even in summer and imagined a story of feminine fragility, of scars that needed hiding. They treated her with a gentle, condescending pity reserved for beautiful things that were slightly broken. Only one person saw through the facade. Arthur Art Galloway, a Gulf War veteran, occupied the worn leather armchair in the corner every morning. His post. From there, he watched the world through eyes that had learned to separate signal from noise. His hands, etched with the roadmap of a hard life, held a slight tremor, but his gaze was rock steady. He recognized the economy in Eliza's movements, the hypervigilance that was too ingrained to be a conscious choice. It was the same coiled stillness he'd seen in young soldiers fresh from the sandbox, a state of being forever alert. He'd watch her wipe down the counter, her eyes sweeping the room in a practiced, almost imperceptible scan. She wasn't just cleaning, she was assessing. He noticed the way she positioned the heavy-bottomed sugar dispensers and the metal milk pitchers. Not for convenience, but for reach. They were potential weapons, placed within a hand's grasp. He'd seen her once, through the window before opening, tracing the parallel scars on her left forearm with a look of profound, silent grief. Art knew those weren't the marks of a victim. They were the tally of a survivor. The tranquility of the 8:30 a.m. rush was shattered by a low, guttural rumble that grew into a ground-shaking roar. It was the sound of multiple, high-displacement engines moving in tight formation. Eliza's hands paused for a fraction of a second over the steam wand, her entire body going rigid. Convoy. Tactical approach. The thought was automatic, an echo from another life. 5 monstrous motorcycles pulled into the parking lot, chrome glinting like bare teeth in the sun. They parked in a perfect wedge, blocking the front entrance. The men who dismounted were clad in worn leather vests bearing the same insignia. A grinning skull wielding a scythe. The Reaper crew, their leader, a mountain of a man with a braided goatee and a jagged scar slicing through his left eyebrow, pointed a thick finger at the shop window, directly at Eliza. His name was Rex Reaper Hogan, and his face was a mask of cruel amusement. The chime of the door was a discordant note in the suddenly silent coffee shop. The smell of old leather, motor oil, and stale beer rolled in with them, an invading force. Rex swaggered to the counter, his crew fanning out behind him in a practice formation of intimidation. A hulking brute with fists like cinder blocks, his vest identifying him as Anvil, positioned himself by the door, effectively blocking the only escape route. 2 others, leaner and meaner, flanked the counter. They moved with a predatory synchronicity that spoke of countless similar encounters. Every conversation died. The air, once filled with the gentle hum of morning chatter, now crackled with a palpable tension. Rex leaned his elbows on the counter, invading Eliza's personal space. His eyes, small and dark, raked over her. "Well, look what we have here," he drawled, his voice loud enough for the entire room to hear. Little Red, all alone in her dollhouse. His crew chuckled on cue. "But she doesn't even know how to make a real man's coffee," one of them sneered. Eliza's expression remained a blank canvas. "What can I get for you?" she asked, her voice even and professional, devoid of the fear they craved. The lack of reaction seemed to fuel Rex's aggression. He picked up a menu, scoffing loudly. "What the hell is a lavender haze latte? This a coffee shop or a damn garden party?" He slammed the menu down. "We'll take 5 black coffees, and make 'em strong enough to strip paint. Think your pretty little hands can manage that?" Eliza turned to prepare the order, her movements still precise, still measured. This infuriated Rex. He had come for a reaction, for the thrill of dominance. Her composure was a denial of his power. Anvil, sensing his leader's frustration, took a step forward. With a flick of his wrist, he accidentally swept a large glass jar of biscotti off the counter. It shattered on the floor, the explosion of glass and crumbs a stark violation of the shop's quiet order. He looked at Eliza, a smirk on his face. "Oops, clumsy me." The entire coffee shop held its breath, waiting for the inevitable tears or the panic call for help. Instead, Eliza calmly retrieved a dustpan and brush from under the counter. Without a word, she began sweeping up the mess, her movements efficient and detached. She didn't look at them. She didn't acknowledge their presence. To her, they were simply a mess to be cleaned, a problem to be managed. This cold, professional dismissal was more insulting to Rex than any curse or plea would have been. It rendered him irrelevant. "Hey, I'm talking to you," Anvil barked, taking a step closer. That's when Art Galloway rose slowly from his corner armchair. The tap of his hand-carved wooden cane on the linoleum floor was a surprisingly sharp sound in the tense silence. He didn't address the bikers. His eyes were locked on Eliza. "Ma'am," he said, his voice quiet but carrying a strange authority. "That timepiece under your sleeve. It wouldn't happen to be a non-standard issue, would it?" The question was bizarre, nonsensical to everyone else. But Eliza's head snapped up. Her eyes met Art's, and for a fleeting moment, a silent communication passed between them, a flash of recognition that transcended the chaos of the room. The bikers exchanged confused, angry glances. "Sit down, old man," Rex snarled, turning his attention to Art. "This ain't your business." But Art ignored him, his focus still on Eliza. "I remember hearing stories," he continued, taking a slow step forward, "about certain specialized gear, devices that could survive deep water ops, send encrypted pings from behind enemy lines. The kind of thing they give to people who can't afford to be found, but can't afford to be lost either." The atmosphere shifted. The bikers sensed they had stumbled out of their depth. Rex, his authority challenged by a calm barista and a cryptic old man, felt his control slipping. His frustration boiled over into pure rage. He needed to reassert his dominance, to physically reclaim the power he was losing. He lunged across the counter and grabbed Eliza's left wrist, his thick fingers closing around the very scars Art had noticed. "Enough of this weird crap," he growled, yanking her forward. "You're gonna show some respect." The contact was the trigger. It was the spark on a short fuse. The moment his skin touched her scars, a switch flipped deep within Eliza's nervous system. The mask of the quiet barista didn't just slip, it vaporized. Her posture changed in the space between heartbeats. Her shoulders squared, her center of gravity dropped, and her eyes, once placid, became chips of ice, calculating angles and weak points. Before Rex could even process the change in her, it was over. Eliza used his own momentum against him. In a fluid motion that was too fast for the eye to properly follow, she twisted her wrist, breaking his grip. Her right hand shot out, not in a punch, but with an open palm, striking a precise nerve cluster at the base of his neck. Simultaneously, she hooked her leg behind his, sweeping his feet from under him. Rex Hogan, all 250 pounds of him, crashed to the floor, a choked gasp escaping his lips as Eliza secured his arm in a submission hold that left him immobilized and in searing pain. The entire sequence took less than 2 seconds. Silence. A profound, echoing silence filled the room, broken only by Rex's ragged breathing. His crew stood frozen, their jaws slack with disbelief. The other customers stared, their minds struggling to reconcile the image of the quiet, broken woman with a ruthlessly efficient warrior standing over the fallen biker leader. It was Art who broke the spell. He stared at Eliza, his face a mixture of awe and dawning horror. "Sweet Mother of God," he whispered, his voice trembling with the weight of his realization. "Your ghost 23. The name meant nothing to the bikers or the civilians, but it hit the room like a physical blow. It was a designation, a call sign from a world of shadows and secrets. Eliza released Rex, who scrambled backward on the floor like a crab, his eyes wide with a fear he had never known. She straightened up, her gaze locking onto Art's. For the first time, the soldier was fully visible. "That name is classified, Art," she said, her voice low and hard. "So was Kandahar, 2021. Art shot back, his own military past flooding his memory. "But some stories need to be told. What the hell is a Ghost 23? Anvil stammered, his bravado gone, replaced by a primal fear of the unknown. Eliza's eyes swept over the stunned faces of the bikers. "The program was a secret," she said, her voice flat, clinical, as if reciting a mission debrief. "A dozen women, recruited from the highest echelons of special operations. We were sent where traditional male units couldn't go. We were ghosts because officially we didn't exist." She took a breath. "I was Petty Officer Eliza Vance, United States Navy. SEAL Team 6. A collective gasp went through the coffee shop. A woman. A Navy SEAL. It was impossible. The intelligence on the Kandahar mission was a lie. Eliza continued, her eyes becoming distant, seeing a dusty compound half a world away. "They told us it was a routine surveillance op, lightly defended. It was a trap. They sold our position, our timeline, our exfil route. An entire company of enemy fighters was waiting for us." The weight of that memory seemed to press down on the entire room. The first RPG took out our comms. The second collapsed the building. By the time the dust settled, they were all gone. "How many came home?" Art asked, though he already knew the answer. "One." The word was a death sentence. "I only survived because I was buried under two of my teammates. I played dead for 6 hours, listening to them celebrate, until the QRF finally arrived." Just as the full, horrifying weight of her story settled over the room, a sleek black sedan with government plates pulled silently into the parking lot. It parked directly in front of the shop. The passenger door opened, and a man in a perfectly tailored suit and a crisp military haircut emerged. He moved with an air of effortless authority. Art's face went pale. "Eliza," he whispered urgently. "That's Colonel Marcus Strand. He was the intelligence officer who signed off on our mission briefing." Eliza's body went rigid, her eyes narrowing into slits of pure hatred. "He didn't just sign off on it, Art," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "He sold it." Colonel Marcus Strand entered the Sentinel Brew as if he owned it, his two plainclothes agents flanking him. His smile was polished, a politician's tool designed to disarm. "Petty Officer Vance," he began, his tone dripping with false concern. "We've been worried about you. We need to bring you in, get you the help you clearly need." "Hello, Marcus." Eliza's voice cut through his charade like shrapnel. "Been a while since you sent me and my team to die for a payday." Strand's smile faltered for a nanosecond. "You're suffering from severe PTSD, he said smoothly, playing to the room. "It's common for trauma to create paranoid delusions." But Eliza was prepared. She had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. She reached under the counter, past the spot where she kept the cleaning supplies, and produced a small, steel-case thumb drive. She held it up. "Are the encrypted bank transfers to your wife's offshore account a delusion, Marcus?" she asked, her voice ringing with clarity and power. "Are the communication logs with the Taliban intermediaries a delusion? I have the timeline. I have the proof. You sold out 12 American heroes for $40,000. Strand's mask of composure finally shattered, revealing the cornered rat beneath. "You have nothing. No one will believe a mentally unstable discharged. I believe her. The voice came from a woman near the back, holding up her smartphone. It was Eleanor Vance, the mayor's wife, a regular who had been live-streaming the entire encounter since the moment the bikers had entered. The red live icon was blinking, along with a viewer count that was skyrocketing into the thousands. And so do they. In that moment, the dynamic shifted completely. The Reaper crew, who had come to terrorize a lone woman, now found themselves witnessing an act of profound betrayal against the country they, in their own twisted way, claimed to love. Rex got his feet. He and his men moved, not toward Eliza, but to form a protective wall between her and Strand's agents. Their menace was now redirected. "You're not touching her," Rex growled, his voice low and final. He unzipped his leather vest, the one with the Reaper crew patch, and laid it on the counter, a gesture of surrender, of shedding his old skin. The standoff was broken by the squeal of tires. Two dark blue FBI vehicles screeched to a halt outside, agents pouring out with a professional efficiency that made Strand's men look like amateurs. Alerted by the viral live stream and the gravity of the accusations, they stormed the coffee shop. Colonel Marcus Strand, the lead agent, announced, "You are under arrest for treason." As they cuffed a sputtering, protesting Strand, whose life of lies was unraveling in real time, the ghost who was supposed to be dead stood her ground, the thumb drive still held high, a tiny beacon of justice. In the stunned silence that followed the FBI's departure, the coffee shop felt like a consecrated space. The air was thick with the weight of what had just transpired. Rex Hogan approached the counter slowly, his head bowed. The swagger was gone, replaced by a profound, humbling shame. "Ma'am, Petty Officer Vance," he stammered. "There are no words. We were wrong. We had no right." Eliza looked at him, her eyes tired but clear. She saw not a monster, but a man shaken to his core by a truth he never expected to face. "You saw someone you thought was weak, and you decided that gave you the right to be cruel," she said, her voice not angry, but weary. "That's the only difference between a bully and a protector. How can we make it right?" Anvil asked, his massive frame seeming to shrink. Eliza's gaze drifted past them, through the large plate glass window, toward the endless rows of white headstones on the hill. "Go to Arlington," she said softly. "Section 60. Read the names. See what real sacrifice looks like. And remember that every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about." The bikers filed out, their movements subdued, their roaring engines starting with a respectful rumble instead of an aggressive roar. 6 months later, the Sentinel Brew was transformed. It was still a coffee shop, but it had become something more, an unofficial sanctuary, a way station. Word had spread through the quiet, unseen networks of veterans. They came not for therapy, but for the silent understanding of a fellow warrior. Eliza still measured her coffee with precision, still watched the doors, still carried the ghosts of 11 teammates. But now, her vigilance had a new purpose. She scanned the faces of her customers, looking for the telltale signs, the 1,000-yard stare, the coiled tension, the invisible wounds. She was still a sentinel, but she was no longer just guarding herself. She was standing watch for others. In the hard-earned quiet of her coffee shop, 3 blocks from where heroes sleep, the ghosts serve hope in a cup, proving that the greatest strength isn't in hiding the pain of survival, but in using it to build a bridge for others to cross.